Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I've been working as a cable technician for over 15 years now, and I love my job. It lets me help people, solve problems, and the pay is decent. When my wife and I were looking for a house 10 years ago, we specifically chose this neighborhood because of its excellent school district for our kids. Sure, it came with a homeowners association, but the rules seemed reasonable at first, and everyone was pretty laid back about things. One of the perks of my job is that I get to take the company truck home. It's a bucket truck. You know, those tall ones with the cherry picker on top. Yeah, it's technically a commercial vehicle, and our association rules say no commercial vehicles in driveways overnight, but everyone was cool about it for years. The truck's too tall for my garage, and I need it for emergency calls, so what else could I do? For a decade, it wasn't an issue. We went through 2 different management companies, and neither cared. Then this new company took over, and boy, did they have something to prove. The first notice came on a Tuesday morning stuck to my door. The management company had left a formal notice about my commercial vehicle being parked in the driveway, citing that according to association rules, commercial vehicles weren't permitted to be parked overnight. I tried calling them to explain my situation. I told them about how I've been parking there for 10 years and how the truck needed to come home with me for emergency calls. I explained that everyone had been fine with it until now. They just coldly responded that rules were rules and I needed to find alternative parking arrangements. I tried reasoning with them further, explaining that I didn't have another car and couldn't leave the truck at work. I asked if we could work something out, but they just repeated that the rules clearly stated no commercial vehicles in driveways overnight and there would be no exceptions. That's when I got smart. I actually read through all the rules carefully. They only mentioned driveways, nothing about street parking. So I started parking my truck on the street in front of my house. The township allows overnight street parking, so I figured I was in the clear. Wrong. Another notice came a few days later. This time they claimed my commercial vehicle couldn't be parked on the street overnight. I appealed again, but they wouldn't budge. That's when I went to the township office. The township official told me that the streets were public property and that the homeowners association had no jurisdiction over street parking. They assured me that as long as I followed township parking regulations, I could park my vehicle there. I got it in writing and took it straight to the management company. The look on their face was amazing when they realized they couldn't do anything about it. But I wasn't done yet. I posted the whole story on our neighborhood Facebook page, sharing what I'd learned about our streets being public property and how the association couldn't regulate what we parked there as long as we followed township rules. The response was better than I could have imagined. My neighbor, who drives a semi-truck, moved his cab from storage to right in front of his house. Another guy brought his recreational vehicle home. Someone else parked their boat and trailer on the street. Within a week, our quiet suburban streets looked like a parking lot for every type of vehicle you could imagine. The management company started getting complaints from other residents about all the vehicles taking up street parking. Then came the backpedaling. The management company announced they'd decided to review the commercial vehicle policy, and while they conducted this review, they would temporarily suspend enforcement of the current rule. When I asked if I could park in my driveway again, they admitted that they believed commercial vehicles under a certain size should be permitted, and they'd be proposing an amendment to the rules. I reminded them that just last week they'd insisted rules were rules. Everyone who had brought their vehicles out in protest moved them back to storage, but not before the management company learned their lesson. They tried to act tough with the wrong person, and it backfired magnificently. These days, my truck sits in my driveway just like it did for the previous 10 years, and the management company, they're suddenly a lot more reasonable about enforcing rules. Sometimes they even wave when they drive by my truck during their inspections. I heard that the management company representative who started all this got reassigned to a different neighborhood. Apparently, Having an entire community maliciously comply with parking regulations wasn't a good look for them. The new representative is much more understanding about the whole spirit of the rules thing. The funny thing is, if they had just listened to me in the first place and worked out a reasonable solution, they could have avoided the whole mess. But sometimes people need to learn the hard way that being inflexible and power-hungry usually doesn't work out well in the end. I've been a personal trainer for about 7 years now, and I recently got promoted to assistant manager at one of the most exclusive fitness centers in our city. It's a high-end place where membership costs quite a bit, but the facilities are top-notch, and we pride ourselves on providing premium service. Everything was going great until this incident happened last month. I was working at the front desk when this woman walked in wearing decent workout clothes and carrying what looked like a $1,000 handbag. She immediately demanded to speak with someone in charge about membership options. I greeted her politely and offered to help. She looked me up and down with disdain and questioned whether I was qualified to assist her. I told her that I was the assistant manager. She proceeded to tour our facility, nodding approvingly at our state-of-the-art equipment and luxury amenities. But when we got to discussing membership fees, her whole demeanor changed. She was outraged when I told her about the $200 monthly fee. I explained that our membership includes access to all premium facilities, group classes, and basic trainer consultations. That's when she claimed she had a serious heart condition and insisted that according to the Americans with Disabilities Act, we had to accommodate her with a free membership. I'd dealt with legitimate disability accommodations before, but something felt off about her demand. When I tried to explain that, while we do provide reasonable accommodations, it doesn't include free membership, she cut me off with a dramatic performance. She clutched her chest and started exclaiming that she was having an episode, claiming that the stress was triggering her condition. Several members stopped their workouts to stare. One of our trainers rushed over and asked if he should call emergency services. She quickly recovered and said she just needed to sit down. Then she used this episode to emphasize why she needed special accommodation, adding a manipulative comment about whether we'd want something terrible to happen to her. Despite our concerns about her claims, we couldn't risk a medical emergency. We agreed to give her a 1-week trial membership while we processed her paperwork and verified her medical documentation. That week was absolute hell. She would come in daily, deliberately overexert herself, then stage these dramatic episodes whenever staff wouldn't give her what she wanted. She demanded constant attention from our trainers, complaining about everything from the temperature to the music volume. The final straw came when she targeted one of our best trainers. He had politely declined to give her a free personal training session. She immediately threw herself to the ground, crying out about her heart and accusing the trainer of refusing to help her, claiming she could die. The trainer called her bluff and immediately radioed for our emergency response team and pulled up our security footage. What we saw was incredible. Before collapsing, she had been checking to see if anyone was watching, then carefully placed her water bottle to cushion her fall. My manager confronted her with the evidence, telling her that we had her on camera faking these episodes and that she needed to leave immediately. She turned red with rage and threatened to sue the entire establishment. She grabbed 2 10-pound dumbbells and hurled them at my manager. One hit him in the shoulder, the other in the knee. He went down hard. I immediately hit the emergency button and security rushed in. By then, she was screaming about discrimination and trying to throw more equipment. It took 3 security guards to restrain her until the police arrived. Turns out she had pulled this same scam at 2 other gyms in different cities. She was charged with assault with a deadly weapon, fraud, and filing false medical claims. My manager needed surgery for his knee and she is now facing serious jail time. During her arrest, she had another heart episode. The responding paramedic was the same one who had treated my manager's injuries. He simply showed her his body cam footage of her running and throwing dumbbells minutes earlier. She suddenly made a miraculous recovery in the back of the police car. We later found out she was actually a social media influencer trying to get free gym memberships to promote on her channels. Instead, she got 3 years in prison and is banned from every major gym chain in the state. My manager made a full recovery, and we donated some of the money from her civil settlement to the American Heart Association. I moved into this neighborhood about 7 months ago after landing a great job at a tech company nearby. The rent was reasonable, the house was perfect for me and my German Shepherd, and the location couldn't be better. Everything seemed ideal until I met my next-door neighbor. This guy, I'll call him the watchdog, is probably in his mid-60s and seems to have made it his life's mission to monitor every single thing that happens in our cul-de-sac. At first, I thought he was just being friendly when he introduced himself, asking about my job and how long I plan to stay. But then things got weird real quick. Every single day without fail, he'd spend hours standing by the community mailbox. I'm not exaggerating, hours. He'd pretend to check his mail or organize the area around the mailbox, all while keeping track of everyone's mail and packages. One time, he actually asked me why I was getting so many Amazon packages. I just stared at him and walked away. When he confronted me about the packages, I told him that they were my packages and none of his business. He tried to justify his nosiness by claiming that, as a longtime resident, he was concerned about increased delivery traffic affecting the neighborhood. I shut him down by reminding him that I pay my rent and can order whatever I want. But that was just the beginning. This guy took issue with everything I did. The breaking point came when he started complaining about my gardening choices. I maintained the yard as required by my lease, but apparently that wasn't good enough for him. He demanded that I replant the flowers, insisting they were in all the wrong spots. When I explained that the landlord was satisfied with my yard maintenance and I was following the lease requirements, he got even more worked up. He started ranting about how that's not how they do things here, and how those flowers had been in the same spots for 20 years. I simply replied that times change. Then came the grilling incident this summer. I was having a peaceful Sunday afternoon barbecue when he stormed over to my driveway. He started yelling about me grilling too close to structures, calling it a serious safety violation. When I pointed out that I wasn't near any buildings, he actually claimed his hedge was a structure and I was too close to it. I had to explain to him, like I was talking to a child, that a hedge is literally just plants. He actually reported me to the Homeowners Association. They investigated and found nothing wrong, but still sent out a friendly reminder about grilling guidelines just to appease him. I was fuming but decided to take the high road. The watchdog surveillance only intensified after that. He installed security cameras pointing at my property, which I'm pretty sure is illegal, but I didn't want to start a war. He'd document when I left for work, when I came home, who visited me, everything. Then came last night. I was sleeping when my dog started barking around 2 a.m. Not his usual, someone's walking past bark, but his serious alert bark. I got up and peeked through my bedroom window, which has a clear view of the watchdog's house across the street. A car I didn't recognize had parked nearby, and 3 people got out. In the darkness, I could see them walking straight to the watchdog's garage side door. They seemed to know exactly where they were going. I watched as they disappeared inside. Now I had a choice to make. I could call the police, or I could just go back to bed. I thought about all the times he'd tried to make my life difficult, all the complaints, the constant surveillance, the attempts to control everything I did. I remembered how he'd made my morning coffee on the porch uncomfortable with his staring, how he'd ruined my weekend barbecues with his ridiculous complaints, and how he'd tried to dictate what I could and couldn't do with my own yard. I put my dog in his kennel and went back to bed. This morning, during my usual walk with my dog, I saw 2 police SUVs parked on our street, one marked, one unmarked. By the time we circled back, the marked car was gone. I later heard through another neighbor that the watchdog's house had been completely cleaned out, electronics, jewelry, his precious security cameras, everything. When the police asked if anyone had seen or heard anything suspicious, I truthfully told them I'd been sound asleep all night. My security cameras? Oh, sorry. They were down for maintenance last night. What a shame. The watchdog's been surprisingly quiet since then. No more standing by the mailbox. No more complaints about my flowers or grilling. I guess sometimes karma has a way of working things out. These days, when I'm grilling near his precious hedge, he just looks away and hurries inside. After landing my dream job at a software company downtown, I finally saved enough to move into one of those fancy apartment complexes. You know, the ones with a gym nobody uses and a pool that's always under maintenance. The rent was steep, but after 3 years of living with my parents post-college, I needed my own space. Everything was perfect for the first few months. Well, almost perfect. See, the complex has this parking situation. There are enough spots technically, but some are so far from the buildings that you might as well park in another zip code. The good spots, the ones near the entrances, are like gold dust. We all developed this unspoken system. If you see someone waiting with their blinker on, you respect the queue. Simple courtesy, right? Then she moved in. I was coming home after a certain rough day at work. My team's project had just crashed and burned during the final presentation, and all I wanted was to collapse on my couch and order an obscene amount of takeout. I spotted someone pulling out of a prime spot right by my building's entrance. Perfect timing. I put my blinker on and waited. That's when I saw her beige SUV come flying around the corner. I honked my horn and yelled out that I had been waiting for the spot. She got out of her car and gave me this condescending little wave. In a sickly sweet voice, she told me it was first come, first served, calling me honey in that patronizing way. When I protested that I had my blinker on and had been waiting for 5 minutes, she just smugly suggested that maybe I should have been quicker. She strutted away, leaving me sitting there with my blood pressure through the roof. I ended up parking what felt like miles away, dragging myself through the rain because of course it started raining. The next day I was venting about this to my friend at the local coffee shop. As luck would have it, he works for the towing company that services our complex. When I described the beige luxury SUV, his eyes lit up with recognition. He told me that the car had been reported several times already for parking over the fire lane line. When I expressed disbelief, he confirmed that one more violation would authorize them to tow. I won't lie. I smiled into my coffee cup. The next morning I watched from my window as my friend slapped a warning notice on her car. She saw it later that day, rolled her eyes, and crumpled it up. The car didn't move an inch. That evening, the beautiful sound of a tow truck backing up filled the parking lot. But the story doesn't end there. A week later, she was back with a vengeance. This time, she parked diagonally across 2 spaces, like her car was too precious to risk door dings. I approached her and pointed out that she couldn't park like that. She immediately got defensive, telling me to mind my own business and asking if I knew how much her car cost. I couldn't resist suggesting that it probably cost about as much as a towing fee. She bristled at that, demanding to know if I was threatening her. I just smiled and told her it was just an observation. One quick phone call later, and karma arrived in the form of another tow truck. This time I left a note. Parking is a privilege, not a right. Keep counting those towing fees. The next day she cornered me in the lobby. She tried to intimidate me, asking if I thought I was clever. I played dumb, telling her I had no idea what she was talking about. She warned me that it wasn't over, to which I calmly replied that she was right. It wouldn't be over until she learned to park properly. Now she parks on the street, a good 5-minute walk away. Every now and then she tries to sneak back into the complex lot, but somehow the tow truck always shows up within the hour. I heard that she's complained to management multiple times, but since she's the one breaking parking rules, there's nothing they can do. Last week I saw her actually waiting her turn for a parking spot, blinker on and everything. I gave her a little wave as I walked by, the same one she gave me that first day. The look on her face was worth every second of that first rainy walk home. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.